Hey family, welcome back. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and loved ones. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there, so drop in the comments. Let's get the hype going. Your support means everything. It was supposed to be just another Saturday morning. I had no plans, no work, no friends to meet, nothing but an empty apartment and an even emptier bank account. So when I saw the neon orange sign duct taped to a telephone pole on Elmwood Street, yard sale, everything must go, I figured, why not? Maybe I'd find a cheap lamp or some old vinyl records, something to fill the silence of my place. The house was only a few blocks away, tucked deep inside a neighborhood that felt older than time itself. Paint peeled from fences, grass was long dead in most of the lawns, and the trees seemed like brittle skeletons scraping at the gray sky. When I turned the corner, I saw the house. A sagging two-story place with weather-beaten shutters and a porch that leaned like it was exhausted. In the driveway, mismatched tables had been set up, loaded with everything from cracked picture frames to old dolls with missing eyes. A few people picked through the junk quietly, but most of them looked like they were just killing time. What caught my attention wasn't the junk. It was the smell, like damp wood and rusted metal. The kind of smell basements hold after floods, when mold grows in hidden corners. I wrinkled my nose, but pushed it aside. Yard sales were rarely glamorous. I walked up to the nearest table. On it sat a stack of VHS tapes with faded covers. Horror movies from the 80s. Titles I'd never heard of. The Silent Ones. Midnight Teeth. The House That Ate the Sun. They looked cheap, maybe even bootlegs. But for some reason, I felt a strange pull toward them. Interested in movies? The voice was raspy, low. I looked up. The man running the sale stood in the shadow of the porch. He was tall, too thin, with long gray hair tied back in a loose ponytail. His eyes were strange, not just tired, but hollow, like the color had drained from them. He smiled faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah," I said, clearing my throat. "I guess I like old horror stuff." He nodded, stepping closer. His movements were slow, deliberate, like each step cost him effort. "These," he said, brushing his fingers over the tapes, "aren't like the others you find in stores. They're different." I gave a small laugh. "Different how?" He tilted his head. "They remember things." I thought he was joking, so I just smiled back and picked up a random tape. The case was cracked. The cover art hand-drawn in colored pencil, just a black house with windows glowing red. Across the top, scrawled in shaky handwriting, "Do not watch alone." I set it back down, deciding not to encourage his weird sales pitch. My attention drifted to another table, this one stacked with photo albums. Thick leather-bound books with faded gold lettering on the spines. Some of them were warped from water damage. I opened one. At first, it seemed normal. Family pictures, birthday parties, Christmas mornings, vacations by the beach. The same smiling faces appeared over and over again. A man with a heavy beard, a woman with long blonde hair, and two children, maybe 10 and 12. But the deeper I went into the album, the stranger the photos became. In one, the family sat around the dinner table, but the food on their plates looked rotten, covered in fuzz and mold. In another, they posed on the couch, except their smiles looked forced. So wide they seemed painful, teeth bared in unnatural grimaces. By the last few pages, the photos had changed completely. They were blurry, too dark to make out clearly, but the figures in them, they didn't look human anymore. Their faces were elongated, pale, with hollow pits for eyes. In one photo, the mother's mouth stretched impossibly wide, almost splitting her cheeks, while the children sat beside her, motionless. I slammed the album shut, my hand shaking slightly. "You can have that one for $5, the man on the porch said softly. His eyes were locked on me. I put the album back. "No, thanks." His smile didn't fade. "Suit yourself." I moved quickly toward the other tables, trying to shake off the unease. But everywhere I looked, the items seemed wrong. Dolls with faces half-burned, rusted tools stained with something too dark to be rust. Clocks that all showed the same time, 3:33. I thought about leaving, but then I saw it, on the farthest table, under a stack of torn blankets. Something caught the light, a small wooden box, about the size of a shoebox, carved with strange symbols I didn't recognize. The wood dark and polished like it had been touched 1,000 times. I lifted it. It was heavier than it looked. The lid rattled faintly, as if something inside shifted. No lock, just a small clasp. I don't know why, but I didn't open it. Some part of me whispered that I shouldn't, that if I did, something would change. How much? I asked. The man's voice was closer now, though I hadn't seen him move. That piece isn't for everyone. I forced a laugh. Yeah, but how much? He studied me for a long moment. His pupils were so dilated they almost swallowed the gray of his irises. Finally, he said $2. That was it. $2 for the strangest, most intricate item at the sale. Something about that felt wrong. But my hand was already in my pocket, fishing out coins. I gave them to him, and he pressed the box into my hands. As soon as I touched it, my skin crawled. The wood felt warm. I shoved it into my backpack and turned to leave, but as I walked down the driveway, I heard his voice again, low, rasping, carried on the wind. Don't open it. Not yet. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I tried to distract myself with TV, scrolling my phone, cleaning the kitchen, but no matter what I did, my mind kept drifting back to that box sitting in my backpack by the door. By midnight, I couldn't resist anymore. I pulled it out, set it on the table, and stared at it under the dim kitchen light. The symbols etched into what seemed different now, sharper, almost moving if I looked at them too long. My fingers hovered over the clasp, and then a sound, a faint knock, not from the door, not from the windows, from inside the box. I froze, heart pounding. Surely I imagined it, but then it came again, 3 soft knocks. I wanted to throw the damn thing away, but instead, I unlatched the clasp with trembling hands. The lid creaked open. Inside was a stack of Polaroid photos, bound together with a rubber band. My stomach tightened as I pulled them out. The top photo showed the same family I'd seen in the album at the yard sale. The bearded man, the blonde woman, and the 2 children. Only this time, they weren't smiling. They were standing in a dark room, their faces pale and blurred, like the photo had been taken in motion. The second photo was of the same family, sitting at a dinner table, except the food was raw meat. Blood smeared their mouths. The third photo made me drop the stack, because it wasn't of them. It was of me, standing in my kitchen, wearing the exact clothes I had on now. The box open in front of me, the timestamp in the corner read, 12:07 a.m. I checked the clock on the wall. It was 12:06. The photo slipped from my hand and skittered across the kitchen tile. For a few seconds, I just stood there, staring at the clock as it ticked closer to 12:07. My breath caught in my throat. My pulse roared in my ears. Then the second hand clicked into place. 12:07. Nothing happened. At least, not right away. I exhaled shakily, bent down to pick up the Polaroid, and told myself it was a coincidence. Some elaborate prank. Maybe the guy at the yard sale had taken a picture of me earlier, without my noticing, or maybe someone else had. That had to be it. But when I lifted the photo, my blood ran cold, because the image had changed. It no longer showed me standing in the kitchen. Now it showed me sitting on the floor, holding the photo in my hand. Exactly as I was in that moment. Behind me, just over my shoulder, a figure loomed. Tall, thin, with a face blurred like wet paint smeared across canvas. I whipped around. The kitchen was empty. The air felt thicker, though heavier somehow. I shoved the photos back into the box, snapped the lid shut, and shoved it under the couch in the living room. Out of sight, out of mind. But the house didn't feel the same anymore. I barely slept that night. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind rattling the windows, made me flinch. I kept imagining the man from the porch standing in the corner of my room, watching with those hollow eyes. When I finally did drift off, my dreams were worse than being awake. I dreamed of the family from the photos. We were all sitting around a table, except the food wasn't food at all. It was the photos, torn into strips. They forced me to eat them while they laughed. Wide, gaping mouths stretching too far. The children's eyes were black pits. The mother's jaw unhinged and dropped onto the table like a snake's. When I woke, my mouth was dry, my throat raw, as if I'd been choking all night. The box was still under the couch. I could feel its presence, like a faint vibration humming through the floor. I thought about throwing it away, driving to the river and sinking it, burning it. But deep down, I already knew it wouldn't matter. Somehow it was tied to me now. The next day, I tried to go about things normally. Work, errands, mindless scrolling. But little things kept happening. When I passed the hallway mirror, my reflection lingered half a second too long after I walked by. When I checked my phone, the camera app would sometimes flicker open on its own. Once, I caught a glimpse of something behind me in the preview screen, a pale face peering over my shoulder, before it vanished. By evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled the box back out and spread the photos across the table. Some of them had changed again. The picture of the family at the dinner table now showed an extra chair. My chair, and I was in it, smiling stiffly like the rest of them. My mouth stretched too wide, my eyes blank. Another photo showed my bedroom. The timestamp was from the night before. In the corner of the image, just barely visible in the shadows, stood the blurred figure again, closer this time. I dropped the photo, heart hammering. That's when my phone buzzed. A notification. New photo added to gallery. My stomach sank. I hadn't taken any pictures. My hands trembled as I opened the gallery app. At the top was a brand new image. It was of me, sitting at the table, staring at the Polaroids. The timestamp? Now. I slammed the phone face down and stumbled back. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe. Something was in the house with me. Something watching. And then, knock. 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 3 slow raps, coming from the kitchen. I crept toward the sound, every nerve screaming at me to run instead. The knocks came again, louder this time. My eyes darted to the counter. The box was back where I'd first opened it. Even though I'd left it on the table, the lid was trembling. With each knock, it shifted slightly, as if something inside wanted out. Stop, I whispered, though my voice shook. Just stop. But the box didn't stop. The knocks turned into scratching, desperate, frantic. And underneath it, faint whispers. Not words I could understand, just hissing syllables, layered voices pressing against the wood. I grabbed the box, sprinted to the front door, and hurled it out into the yard. The whispers cut off instantly. I locked the door, slid down against it, and sat there in silence for what felt like hours. The next morning, the box was back inside, sitting neatly on the kitchen table, lid closed, waiting. My stomach twisted into knots. My mind raced with explanations, sleepwalking, hallucination, stress. But deep down I knew the man at the yard sale hadn't sold me junk. He'd given me a curse. The Polaroids confirmed it. Every single one of them now showed the same thing. My apartment, different rooms, different angles, the bathroom, the hallway, even my bed while I slept. Sometimes I was in the frame, sometimes not. And in every single one, the blurred figure was there too. Closer, closer, closer. That night, the noises started. Scratching in the walls. Footsteps in the hall when I knew I was alone. My bedroom door creaking open at 3:33 a.m., though I locked it before bed. I stopped sleeping altogether. Coffee and energy drinks kept me going, but my body felt like it was decaying from the inside. And then came the voices. At first, just whispers at the edge of hearing. Then louder. They said my name. Sometimes in a child's voice, sometimes a deep rasp. Always from behind me. Always when I was alone. I tried to call a friend come over, but the line went dead as soon as they picked up. Static filled my ear, followed by a faint laugh. The box sat on the table, waiting. I realized it wasn't just showing me images. It was predicting them, recording them before they happened, and maybe, just maybe, deciding what would happen next. On the third night without sleep, I cracked. I opened the box again, but this time, instead of photos, there was something else inside. A VHS tape. The label was blank, just a strip of yellowing tape with a single word scrawled across it. Home. My old VCR was buried in the closet, but I dragged it out, hooked it to the TV, and slid the tape in. Static filled the screen. Then the image cleared. It was footage of my apartment. The camera angle was strange, tilted from the corner of the ceiling like a security cam. I watched myself walk into frame, sit on the couch, and stare blankly at the TV. My movements lagged by a few seconds behind my real self, like the tape was watching me live but slightly delayed. Then, behind me in the footage, the figure appeared. The same blurred, tall shape. It leaned closer to my on-screen self, its head nearly brushing my shoulder. My real shoulder went cold, like breath against my skin. I spun around, nothing there. When I turned back to the TV, my recorded self was gone. The couch was empty. The figure stood alone, facing the camera now. Its face wasn't blurred anymore. It looked exactly like mine. The screen went black. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at my reflection in the dark glass of the TV. My pulse hammered, so hard I thought I might pass out. The figure had looked exactly like me. Not blurred, not distorted. Just me, staring back on the television, eyes flat and cold, mouth curved in a smile I didn't recognize. And then, faintly from somewhere behind me, home. I jumped to my feet. Who's there? The apartment was silent, but the air felt heavy. Each breath I took came with effort, like inhaling through wet cloth. My eyes darted to the box on the table. Its lid was shut again, though I hadn't touched it. I thought about running, just leaving everything behind. Apartment, belongings, the cursed box. But something deep down whispered that it wouldn't matter. No matter where I went, it would follow, because I had opened it. I had accepted it. That night, I didn't sleep. Couldn't. I sat in the living room with every light on, staring at the box. Around 3:33 a.m., the whispering began again. At first, it was faint, like wind pressing against the windows. Then louder, layered voices overlapping each other until it became a chorus. They weren't speaking words anymore, just sounds, growls, hisses, laughter. The lights flickered, and then I heard footsteps. Not outside, inside. Slow, deliberate, heavy. They moved down the hallway, closer and closer, until they stopped right outside the living room. My throat tightened. My body refused to move. The doorframe was empty, but in the reflection of the black TV screen, I saw something step into view. Tall, thin, skin stretched too tight over bone, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, face blurred like a bad signal, and then, slowly, it leaned down until its face was beside mine in the reflection. I spun around. Nothing there. When I turned back to the TV, the reflection showed something different. Me, but not me. My reflection grinned with blood smeared across its mouth, eyes wide and hungry. And then the lights went out. I don't remember falling asleep, but at some point, I woke to daylight seeping through the blinds. For a moment, I almost convinced myself it was just exhaustion, a nightmare brought on by too much caffeine and paranoia. But then I noticed the Polaroids. They were spread across the floor in neat rows, as if someone had carefully laid them out while I slept. Dozens of them. Every single photo showed me sleeping in my bed. The timestamps were from last night. In each one, the blurred figure was closer, sitting on the edge of the bed, standing over me, pressing its face down toward mine. The last photo made by a rise in my throat. It showed me lying in bed with my eyes wide open, staring straight at the camera, even though I had no memory of waking. And in the corner, the figure wasn't blurred anymore. It was wearing my face. By evening, I'd lost all sense of time. I hadn't eaten, hadn't drunk water. My apartment reeked of sweat and stale coffee. Every time I looked in the mirror, I swore my reflection lagged a fraction of a second. And then came the knock. Not on the box this time. On the door. 3 sharp raps. I froze, listening. Another knock, louder. Against every instinct, I crept to the peephole. At first, no one was there. Then, slowly, a face leaned into view. My face, smiling that same too wide smile from the reflection. I stumbled back, hard in my throat. The knocking grew frantic, shaking the door in its frame. I grabbed the box, clutching like a shield, though I didn't know why. The knocking stopped. Silence. And then, from the other side of the door, I'm home. My knees gave out. I dropped the box. The lid burst open on impact. What spilled out wasn't just photos this time. It was teeth. Dozens, maybe hundreds of human teeth clattering across the floor, rolling into the corners of the room. Some yellow with age, others fresh, pink flesh still clinging to the roots. And beneath them, more Polaroids. I picked one up with trembling fingers. It showed me kneeling on the floor, surrounded by scattered teeth, exactly as I was in that moment. But behind me, through the doorway, my double stood, smiling, waiting. I felt breath on the back of my neck. I turned. I don't remember screaming, but I must have. The neighbors banged on the walls, shouting at me to shut up. My throat ached like I had torn it raw. When I came to my senses, I was lying on the kitchen floor, drenched in sweat. The box sat beside me, lid closed, as if nothing had happened. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined everything. But then I saw the Polaroid still clutched in my fist, the teeth scattered across the tiles. And I realized something. In the photo, the figure wasn't standing behind me anymore. It was standing inside me, our bodies overlapping, our faces fused. I tried to get rid of it after that. I swear I did. I burned the Polaroids, only to find fresh ones waiting on the table the next morning. I hurled the box into a dumpster across town, only to wake with it at the foot of my bed. I even tried smashing it to pieces with a hammer, but the wood wouldn't splinter, not even a scratch. The box wanted me. It had chosen me. And I knew, deep down, that fighting it was useless. The last night came quietly. I woke to the sound of someone moving in the kitchen. Not footsteps, just a faint shuffle of movement, like someone waiting. When I walked in, the box was open on the table. Inside, there weren't any photos this time. No teeth, just a mirror. Small, handheld, the glass cracked down the center. I lifted it with shaking hands. My reflection stared back at me, except it wasn't cracked. It was whole, perfect. My reflection smiled slowly, even though I didn't, and then it reached out. A pale hand pressed against the other side of the glass. The surface rippled like water. Before I could drop it, the hand pushed through, cold fingers wrapping around my wrist. I tried to pull back, but it was too strong. The reflection leaned forward, pressing its face against the glass until it slipped through completely. It stepped into my kitchen, dripping like ink, and stood there, me, but not me. I staggered back. It smiled that wide, terrible smile. "You opened the door," it said, voice perfectly matching mine. "Now I can stay." The mirror slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor, and the lights went out. I don't know what happened after that. When I woke, the apartment was empty. The box was gone. The Polaroids, the teeth, the mirror, gone. But the reflection in the TV screen still smiles when I walk past. And sometimes when I close my eyes, I hear a voice whispering, "I'm home."